Y'all, you know what time it is. It is 1 p.m. It is Wednesday in Kitsap County, 57 degrees. It is a beautiful day. Thank you all for joining us. This is the Conduit. Man, it looks like spring might be here. What is it? Poxitani something, whatever that thing is. 6 more weeks of winter. I don't even know if that's still in play or not. It was always kind of a weird thing growing up, and I think it's an urban legend. Who knows? But the kids loved it. But it's a beautiful day. I'm feeling good. I'm excited. Why? Because it is the best hour of your week, which means that it's tipping points and puzzle pieces. So let me go ahead and bring on Mark Boatwright Frost. How are you doing today?
I'm feeling feisty today.
Oh, feisty. The word of the day is feisty, y'all.
Yeah,
All
feeling
right.
feisty today.
All right. So feeling feisty.
Yep. So you see what we're talking about today is in these dark times, you can be a light for others.
Mm, okay. Well, feisty, that sounds kind of optimistic. Could be
It
in dark
is.
times, you could be an even darker succubus of a black hole for others, but you know, that sounds really
Well,
positive the way you're spinning it.
yeah, and so today we're like talking about perspective and understanding. And as I've said before, and I will say again, without perspective, you don't change your perception of things. You have to step back and see a bigger picture. So we're going to talk about that. And we're going to talk about that in very challenging ways. So all of you, buckle up your seatbelts, open your minds, and try not to judge until you know what's actually being said.
Let's go.
Okay, so first question, Marwan. This one's for you.
Uh-oh.
You are a large black man. Should I be afraid of you just because of that?
Wow.
And we're off
Not
and
what I
running.
thought you were gonna ask me. uh, I'm a large black man. Should you be afraid of me? You know what? I would say that depends. It depends on the situation. If I saw myself and it was late at night, it wouldn't matter if I was black or white. I might be a little hesitant or cautious as I was approaching that person or if they were walking behind me. So ultimately I would say no, right? But yes, obviously situationally, yeah, I'd have cause for concern.
So I've been thinking a lot about our perception and how it is molded by media and by television, by Hollywood. As we love to hear, the ever liberal people at Hollywood who continually push racial stereotypes.
Woke Hollywood?
Yeah, woke Hollywood. Think about it. I was kind of going over. You and I watch a lot of the same shows, and whenever you see a black man in a role, is he like your everyday black man, or is it always some color on it? No pun intended. That spins it into a stereotype.
Especially now, absolutely, and I would say woke is very appropriate. So for me, being a cisgendered male, uh, the representation that I see overwhelmingly of black men are black men that are in the LGBT group or diaspora black men that are not foundational black Americans or people that were uh, born descendants of slaves, right?
Right.
So, maybe Nigerians or Dominican Republican folks. So you're seeing a lot more representation of that, but there's a disappearance of, I'll call the American black male, if you will.
And
So, yes.
so, and a lot of the stuff that we see is centered around gangs in urban cities or troubled people, and it's always painting this picture again and again. So let's step back for a minute and say, how real is that image?
Not very real at all.
Yeah. So, but yet that's what we get painted again and again and again, almost constantly. And this is just one example. There are thousands and thousands of examples. Asian Americans screaming about non-Asians representing them on the screen in their and they've done a huge and very successful pushback. There was the debacle or the issue a couple of years ago with the Hawaii Five-O staff, where the Asian actors weren't being paid equitably to the non-Asian actors on the show,
Oh wow.
and they walked out, and the entire cast shifted. I think it was season 5 or something like that. Um, there's a lot of disparity, and the disparity a lot of the time is how they portray characters of a race or gender or culture to the people that are consuming the media. And I see it again and again and again, and I'm much more aware of it now, and I'm watching it, and I'll enjoy the story, but it's always there in the back of my head, and it's always just kind of the awareness that I'm being sold a picture that doesn't exist. So you go in and you start looking at news images or news information about crime rates and the other things that are supposed to scare the hell out of us. And this, I want to say, folks, is how othering happens. Othering doesn't happen because of Ku Klux Klan march. Othering doesn't happen because of Congress choosing a group and ostracizing them, though that is absolutely happening. Othering happens because we have an acceptance of the continual messaging and an acceptance of facts that aren't facts and information that has no context. And it keeps us from working together. And nowadays, and I use the black and white because it's obvious with Marwan and I. I mean, it's the obvious, easy shot. So I apologize for putting you on the spot right there, Marwan. But we do it to each other now on every level. White people do it to white people. White people do it, to everybody else. Everybody does it to everybody else because it's always messaged to us that we are other and we cannot trust anybody else and we cannot work with anybody else. The counter message to that, or the co-message with that, is we need to do it on our own. We need to stand on our own. We need our individuals, and we cannot trust or work with anybody else. We have to make it on our own. Is there anything I've said here that you disagree with?
No, but except for the fact that at the end, your end statement, I actually agree with that. At the end, right before King was assassinated, in one of his speeches, he was lamenting about, "Did what have I done? Did I march my people into a burning building?" And so, desegregation and integration was so important, but through social engineering, a lot of harm was done to us, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so the sovereignty of indigenous peoples, I think would have done the Black community far better than what we ended up going through, right? And so you can look at there was an article that came out with the Baltimore schools, and none of their kids are at reading level or math level. Like, I mean, it's horrifying. It's 2023, right? Um, and so those things have to be addressed. Even when you have DeSantis down in Florida saying, "Hey, we're not going to do CRT, and we don't want to teach Black history, and this it's an affront to white kids, and white kids are going to feel some kind of way." And my thought on that is, great, that's fine. At the end of the day, your history needs to be taught at home, by your family and your friends. And if there are issues with racism and discrimination and biases and things like that, do you really want those folks to be the ones that are teaching you about your history, which they don't really teach, you know,
At
American history
all.
anyway, right?
Nope.
So in that way, it's like, yeah, we should be taking that on. At the same time, I recognize the fight is important because if you allow those things to be removed, there was just an article this morning that I was listening to, and they were talking about a superintendent was speaking with one of her principals about how now you can't necessarily say that slavery was bad. And it's like, the pendulum is just swung so far to the right. It's like there's no common sense at all. It's just
Okay,
totally.
so let me ask you a question here because
Sure.
I'm going to kind of dive into pieces, and all y'all out there, get ready with that canceling button. You get it in your hand and get ready to hit the canceling button. Who writes the textbooks?
You know, I don't have a good answer to that. I would say, those people, the power structure, the new world
Corporations.
order.
Corporations do. It's a multi-billion-dollar industry. Corporations write the textbooks, not teachers, not scientists, not anthropologists, not historians. They are written and compiled by corporations. Have you read a history book in the last decade?
I've reviewed one a week and a half ago, and you and I were talking about that, where
Yep.
a history professor was going through a bunch of history textbooks and in a panel and just talking about what was accurate, what wasn't covered, how well things were covered. So outside of that, no, it's been quite some time.
So I'm going to ask you, what does reading a public education history book and mucking out a stall for a horse have in common?
I don't know what mucking out a stall for a horse is, so I don't know what they have in common.
Mucking out a stall is cleaning up the horse shit. So the thing they have in common is it's a lot of horse shit.
Oh man.
It's I even back in my high school days in the 70s, history books were horrible. They were a chore to get through. And they didn't give you anything but facts and figures. Is our history facts and figures? Is the black history facts and figures? Or is it a lot of color and context and texture and lives and juicy stories?
I think it's both.
Well, yeah, but you can't remember one without the other, in my opinion. Without the stories, you don't remember the facts and figures, and who's who don't make any sense. You can remember
I
them for the test, but not any farther.
I agree with that. Again, I only went to the ninth grade, but I hated history. And it's not until my adulthood where I'm more intrigued by history.
I I love history, and one of my best friends is an anthropologist, a forensic anthropologist, and he and I have Facebook conversations and messenger conversations all the time about um, the retelling of history and how it gets so much wrong. But history is written by the winners,
Right.
so we don't get history. Today on Facebook, actually, it was kind of funny because the first thing this morning on Facebook, somebody said, if you could redo one subject in school that you had and change it all to make it better, what would it be? And I said, history. I mean, math and everything else, fine, but history needs to be taught differently, and it needs to be taught. And as an ancillary to history, we need to go back to teaching civics. We need kids to understand that the first three words of the Constitution are "We the People." Kind of almost blanked on it, because they don't. I'm going to be at South Sound Sustainability Expo on the 22nd of April, which is, by the way, Earth Day. And the question they asked me to give a question to kids that every kid should know, and I say, "What are the first three words of the Constitution?" I've done this 2 years now, and 1 in 10 might take a guess at it. The others don't even try. I don't know.
Well, in their defense, why should they? A lot of them feel very disenfranchised.
And why is that? Because we don't follow our own Constitution. We don't even know how it works. We believe politicians who say they're going to do X, Y, and Z, when if you'd have read the Constitution, you know that they actually can't do that.
See, I think it's the opposite. I think most folks are apathetic and believe that their politicians really aren't going to do anything. So they're going to vote against the person they think is the worst. And hey, hopefully we get a little something. But if we don't, you know, and you
Well,
see it all the time.
that's our truth here, absolutely,
Mhm.
without a question. I have voted. I've lived in the woke state of Washington and California most of my life, but I've also traveled and lived in different states. In California and Washington State, I have always felt, except for the very first time I voted, that I am voting for the lesser of two evils. And
Well,
it doesn't
I'll
matter
say,
what color they sit on. You know,
from a black perspective, at least from mine, it's two wings of the same bird, right? Opposite sides of the same coin.
yep.
Um, and
There's actually
historically, we vote Democratic, and
mhm.
that's what we're given, right? Back to blue, no matter who. And so, in that regard, our the people that we vote for never have to give us anything, right?
Okay.
And
So
they don't
now
have
I'm
to address us directly. What we get is, we're not gonna do anything directly for you. If we do something, it's gonna be for everyone. But, it's ridiculous. Very
so I'm gonna
frustrating.
I'm gonna raise the curtain now about perspective, and this has all been heading toward perspective. Ta-da. So we've just had a 10-minute and 17-minute conversation about perception around history and life. We take what we get. We don't know anything about the founding documents, the social contract under which our country was founded and under which we live. We vote for politicians, but not really expecting them to do anything, which is not, let me call out, holding them to a higher standard. And we're all individuals going different directions, trying to do it on our own. When the first three words of our Constitution are "we the people." How's that for a little perspective?
I get what you're saying. I think,
But
the
it's
way the
hard to see
system
anything
is
else.
well, I mean, the way the system is set up, right? If folks do come out and get out the vote, right, and they'll tend to vote more for the presidential election, right? They don't really focus so much on down ballot voting, even though the reverse would be more important, right? Down ballot voting would be more important than actually voting for the president. Um, but it's such an expenditure, and folks make it so hard to vote that that's only the beginning piece, right? And so people believe, hey, well, I cast my vote, my person was in. All right, now you fix it. And it's like, no, now the work comes. You have to be even more supportive while they're in office, hold them accountable and keep their feet to the fire and support them to see that the change is made that you want.
Absolutely. And you have to do it in the grassroots with the Democratic Party. You have to become a precinct officer, and they call PCO. And you have to represent people, and you have to talk to people, and you have to actually connect to people. And that's where it all falls down. What has happened to us, why this is an accepted practice, is because we accept that other people are going to do it for us. And so therefore the system got rigged, so a few people were making the decisions for everybody.
Mhm.
And it still looks like we have a voice, but in the reality we don't. We don't get to choose who goes on our ballot.
That is
We
true.
we were involved in the last county commissioner election, right? We saw Antoinette Delgado. We saw the Josh. We talked to no, we never did talk to Katie. Did you ever talk to Katie?
No, I didn't get a chance to.
Okay, so we talked to several of the people that were involved, and we got their takes. Um, but how were those the people that were selected because they were the ones who put their name in the hat to go for county commissioner? Why won't anybody else put their name in the hat if they think that they can do it? And part of the putting your name in the hat um, is being willing to do the work to change. And who's going to do that on their own? Or putting your name in the hat is, I'm going to get something out of this. So I'm putting my name in the hat so that I can better my own situation. Which do you think is the driver?
Of why people are putting their name in the hat or not putting their name in the hat?
Yeah. Yeah.
I think the driver on it is one, it's very much like high school, as they say, right? It's a popularity contest and it's also money. So, are you going to have the backing and the fundraising chops to raise money for it, right? Or are you just kind of out there with not a lot of support? And I would say some of those candidates that we talked to, one had, a lot of money and infrastructure behind him, and the other candidate did not. And it was more grassroots, and it was pretty evident at looking at the campaigns as they paralleled, right?
Yep. So the question is, and again, and I'm going to go back and touch this. Do people put their name in the ring because they are serving, they are focused on service and improving people? Or do people put their name in the ring because it will personally benefit them?
I think both. The two people that we spoke to, yeah, I want to be
One,
fair.
I
I don't want to.
one I will absolutely say was doing it for service.
Yes,
One of the three people we talked to was absolutely doing it for service.
right. So, and that's what I'm saying. I think there's both, right? And what
But
I
who
think
wins?
happens. Hmm?
But who wins? Who does the Republican or the Democratic Party back?
Well, and we've seen it, right? Especially in the Democratic Party, where someone was, and I can't say what the names, who the names were, or what district this was in, but this has come up time and time again, where you've got this Democratic nominee that wants to run, but the Democratic Party doesn't back that person, and they actually sometimes will back the Republican against that Democrat, that person that wants to run as a D, and it's like that's crazy, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or someone who is more moderate and not liberal. So they'll go against.
So I'll tell you a real story that happened here in Kitsap County. Many years ago, Patty Lent was our county commissioner in Central District. She was a Republican, but she voted with the Democrat more often than not, and she voted her heart and what she thought was right. The other, there was a hardcore left wing D that everybody, that a lot of the Central Kitsap hated, and she was North Kitsap. And then there was a very hardcore Republican that was ideological Republican that was being influenced heavily by a political entity here in Kitsap County. And then there was Patty, who was a Republican, but voted more often to do the right thing. So the Republican Party pulled a fast one and ran a primary election that caused people to cross the aisle, because you at that point were allowed to cross over and vote, but only you had to be that, whatever you voted, you had to be that for the election. And Patty lost a lot of her support, and they ended up with someone from that political entity that was supporting the Republican candidate running for Central Kitsap commissioner, and Patty basically never made it through the primary, even though she was by far the better candidate. And I'm not saying this because Patty's a friend of mine. I'm saying this is because she was the better candidate. She did the right things the right way because it was the right thing to do. Um, and here's the punchline of this joke: a 26-year-old Californian who didn't even have residency here ran against the Republican candidate that the Republican Party basically maneuvered to get into that seat, and won by a landslide.
Wow.
Because the guy who was from the Republican Party in that political entity was unelectable.
Mm.
So they did all this work to get their candidate in, and he got basically, excuse the terminology, bitch slapped by a 26-year-old UC Berkeley graduate who didn't even have clear residency here. But people wanted him far more than the other guy.
But I think that only really, bears itself out when it's so stark, right? Like this
Mm-hmm.
person is, like you said, clearly unelectable, even from that side's own party. If it's
But
close or that person's
they're in their
radical
echo
but not off
chamber.
the. Hmm?
Yeah, but they're in their own echo chamber. They thought he was electable because they're listening to their own choir.
Well, this is true.
But so let's talk about perception and perspective. Our perception is that that's going to continue to happen and there's nothing we can do about it. But gaining greater perspective shows us that there's absolutely everything we can do about it. But we have to address the constant messaging that we have, and we have to step back and take a hard look at it and realize that we're being sold a bill of goods with no backing on it, and that we need to come to our own conclusions, and we need to understand the real truth of the matter is that just because you're a big black man, Marwan, I shouldn't be afraid of you. I should come up and shake your hand and say, hey, let's go get coffee. We are sold fear constantly, 24/7, from the time we can walk until we die. We are sold fear. And if we are ever going to have a different world, we need to address that. And we need to look hard, square at it. And we need to understand how we're being sold it. And we need to start reprogramming ourselves not to react to it. Told
Yeah.
you this was going to be a rocking program. And this whole cancel culture, and this is where I'm going to just get right into it. Cancel culture. Let's think about that for a minute. People, you and I, as people, are intelligent. We communicate clearly. We have a tremendous fondness for each other. We work well together. And that's true of a lot of the people that are in my circle and the people I work with. As individuals, people are genuinely valuable and can be loving and can be great people. As a group, people are stupid. And I don't think anybody can really argue. We do things in a group that we would never, as individuals, consider doing. And this is how we end up in these situations. Cancel culture is a group thought.
A mob mentality, right?
It is a mom mentality. So I say something that you don't have the context for or the understanding of. You don't ask me a question. You don't engage in a conversation. You don't try and understand what I'm really saying. You cancel me. Yet, am I a person who's going to say something truly offensive without having context to it? Or is it something you will take one way that I couldn't possibly have meant it that way? Because our system of communication, our words are dangerous, dangerous things. They're used so many different ways and in so many different contexts that what I say and what you hear are two different things. It's what I say when I teach the class when we talk about Miguel Ruiz and the Four Agreements. Don't ever take anything personally because it's not about you. In fact, you don't even hear or see the person talking to you. You see what you think they are saying and what you think they are through the filters of your life experience. And the other person's seeing the same thing. And if you don't realize that, you never get to a point where you can actually hear that person and actually see that person.
It's so hard, and folks will refer to the red pill spaces in social media, right? And kind of the um, matrix analogy of
Mm-hmm.
you take the blue pill and you stay in the matrix, you take the red pill and
It's
you
the
get to see
other.
the world for what it is.
I think it's the
And
other way. The red pill you stay in the matrix, and the blue pill you actually get woke.
no, no, no. It
Is
is
it?
the red pill
Oh,
is you see the world for what it really is. But
okay.
the issue is that there is so much social engineering, right?
Mm-hmm.
Whether you're watching Fox News or MSNBC, like you say, you started this conversation off with Hollywood, right? It's fed to us in so many different our textbooks, right? So you're
Everything.
getting it from infancy and every single day through TikTok, right? It's very interesting that Trump wanted to get rid of TikTok, and now Biden is finally coming around, and TikTok is destructive to Americans, right? Especially for our girls
Our,
here,
our ability
their
for
mental
attention
health.
span, our attention span, and our ability to read has been damaged by social media in so many ways.
Well, I mean, even they just did a study. So, our
Mhm.
girls and their self-image, and, their depression, and wanting to, take themselves out. We got to be careful what we say on YouTube. So we can't say the word. But all of these things, they exist. We know it, some of us do, and then others are just kind of taking it hook, line, and sinker. So the social engineering is so dominant. It's so hard to break away from that, you know?
It takes work, and you have to be willing to do the work. And so
But how do
few of
you
us.
know? You've been force fed,
Well,
right? This is what you believe.
they watch tipping points and puzzle pieces.
Yeah, well, I mean, hopefully, right?
Yeah.
But then it's like, well, they need to be canceled, which is how that happened, right? So it's the mob mentality. We're gonna social engineer you to think and view the world in this way, and if you see anything that's counter to that, you need to cancel that. And it's both on the right and the left, from the radical fringes of it that push on the inside.
So again, we'll go back to the science of tipping points. 80% of the people will probably never wrap their head around it. I mean, and life is too complex. I'm not saying they're stupid. I'm saying that life is complex, and they are being socially engineered 24/7, 365 days a year, no matter what channel you're watching.
Hey, but you know what?
So,
Before you continue, Mark, that
yeah.
that was me, right? When I
Yeah.
taught at the community college, I was very blue pilled, right?
Hmm.
I had, and part of that was, look, you have to understand how hard it is for you to get a degree, multiple degrees, right? To be vetted and be hireable in an academic institution to teach, and then you have to be a good match. So if you're coming in as a radical, you're probably not getting in. At that time, I was so
Yeah.
blue pilled that that's all I that's where I was. And it wasn't until I was in, right? And those things didn't make sense to me. And my experience, because I didn't go through a traditional high school, and lived outside, and kind of came in and had a different lived experience on what it would take and how high stakes it is for non-traditional students to try to get certificates and degrees and whatnot, that I was able to break away from that. And I ended up being very combative against the institution on a lot of different fronts because of it, right? But that was the catalyst for me. But I was, a sheeple, if you will. I know that sounds derogatory for some of the ones that are asleep, but you said it is what it is today, so I'm going for it. Um, and so it was hard to break away from that. And now I have to say, kind of like the Matrix, it is harder, but man, it's so much more freeing to be woke, right? And even woke, which was a positive thing, has been turned into a pejorative. You should be woke, right?
Mhm.
But they've allowed the opposition to turn those things bad, right? So and it's a strategy that exists where it says, okay, if this side is using some kind of phrase or terminology or slogan as something good, you need to turn
We
it
have
on
to
its head and
co-op
make
it.
it something bad, right?
We have to co-opt it and
Yeah.
use it for something else. And that's why language and words are so dangerous.
Think of how crazy that is, Mark. Like, how do
No, I
you
do every
change?
day.
You need to be woke. You need to wake up and see things, to saying woke is bad. No, you need to go back to sleep, because that's the opposite of woke, right? So
Yep.
literally, woke is bad. You need to go to sleep. That's
It
crazy
is. It
when
is
you think about
crazy.
it.
It is crazy. But think of the things that they're doing and trying to other. Okay, so in a way, that's good news. That's really good news. I always take heart when the louder it gets and the crazier it gets, I get happier. You know why? Because it means the minority is screaming loudly because they're watching it slip away. We are waking up and we are reaching a tipping point, but we need to reach it faster. Now we're in a race against our own mortality, and that's a problem. Yeah, it's true. It's true.
I didn't put that in the private chat.
Yeah, but it's absolutely true, don't you think? Uh,
Oh,
Sorry,
private joke.
Marwan is being off color. Okay.
Oh, that's hilarious.
Oh, see, that's another way we control people through innuendo.
Oh my goodness. Okay,
All
sorry
right,
about that,
so it's
everyone.
okay, but we are reaching a tipping point, and we
Oh,
need to reach it quicker because we are now in a race against our own mortality. I know I say that, and people go, "Pff," or they can't hear it, or whatever. Folks, I've spent 20 years, 2 decades working in this sector, learning about clean technology, learning about science around farming, agriculture, learning about science of people. I don't have a major degree, but I've got a hell of an education. And the things I see and the things I know and the things I get to carry with me are things that I think everybody should know, but not all at once. And I don't think you should all carry it. But we are in a serious place where if we don't start pulling ourselves together and start learning how to work with each other, we're going to have an extinction level event in the next 100 years. And we aren't addressing it. We aren't addressing any of it because business as usual. And that's just the truth. We focus on short term profit over long term survival. And that card game only plays out until it doesn't. And when it doesn't, nobody's going to be at the table anymore.
if I can, I just wanted to share my screen
Yeah.
because this really speaks to me, what you're saying here. And we really do need to wake up. Let me just share this. And this was on GMA. What time was this? A month ago. Okay.
Okay.
And just this right here, 818 train derailments. So when we look at, what's happened with where was that in Ohio
Ohio with
and all
the
the
tough.
toxic.
Yep.
Well, I mean, if you divide that, right, that's almost very close to 3 a day. But we don't hear about that.
Nope.
There's consequences for all of these derailments. Like our infrastructure is crumbling around us.
And we're politically being hamstrung because
I had
one
no
party,
idea.
yeah, yeah, I did. I have a couple close friends who work for the rail company, and they explain things to me. And they explain how the rails are not being upgraded, they're not being maintained properly, and a lot of the strike that just happened were about maintenance and applying maintenance. But it's hard to spend for maintenance when you want profit. You make bad decisions for everybody based on your personal bottom line. And the
Fair
rail,
use. This is
yeah,
Turkey
yeah,
6 days ago.
yeah, and that was California a week ago.
I mean, what are we going to do?
We come together. We don't have any other option. But we always come together when the crisis is in our face. We need to come together now and prevent the crisis from happening, or to mitigate the worst of it. All of the technology we need is here today. We need to come together and let stop the distractions and ignore the distractions. We need to come together and find a human future. And when I mean human future, people go, well, what's that mean? I don't know. It sounds like some greeny thing. A human future is a future where we live. That's it. Simple. Where we have food on the table, where we have water to drink, where we have shelter, where we have power. And as long as corporations are in charge of all that, they're going to look at the short term profit over our long term survival every single time. And does that mean that a corporation is the people in the corporation are evil? No, the corporation's a machine. Nobody's making these decisions. Some accountant's looking at the numbers and somebody's making a decision on the number without looking at the big picture. That's how it's happening. There is no responsibility. There is no evil mastermind here. There is simply corporations. And the Citizens United saying corporations are people, horse shit. Another stall needs mucking out. So
And this
yeah,
is a big contributor of our affordable housing issue, right?
yep,
Corporations like BlackRock buying up thousands of homes, the privatization of water.
Yep.
There's a lot of
I,
scary things that are happening
I,
all at once.
I will say this again because I find it the most offensive thing I've heard. The CEO of Nestle Corporation, which is a Swiss company, who has a water pumping station on a tribal land in California, who is drought ridden and needed water. Nestle pumps water, millions of gallons of water for bottled water that they ship out all over the country from the middle of California. And the CEO of Nestle says, water is not a right. Water is a profit source.
Wow. Wow.
Look it up. It's a very famous quote by them.
Wow.
So let me open your eyes a little bit more. Are you ready?
Do you have to? Like, wow.
Water is tested at the source before it gets pumped to your house. And all of the data relying on is saying that or to the pumping stations, the data that is relayed on water quality is based on pumping stations or the source, not your pipes, not your house, not your faucet. How much do you guess of the pipes in the ground have been there for more than 50 years?
I would venture a guess of probably 90% plus.
Probably closer to 70, but yeah. And so what goes on in those pipes isn't really dealt with.
Well,
They
Flint,
flush it out
Mississippi,
periodically. Huh?
I don't Flint, Mississippi. I filter my tap water, but even my Brita filter can't filter it all out.
Yeah, so we are perspective. We are reliant on a system that's broken. We are reliant on a system that is inhuman and acts like a machine. We are reliant on a system where human beings don't make decisions, numbers do. I don't go with good and evil here. I go with these are machines that need to be reprogrammed. The only way to reprogram them is for people come together, learn what's going on, and make decisions to change things because we, the people, can. Our Constitution is not changed. The politics around it have, but the Constitution has not changed. We need to push the issue together. But for that, we need to evolve into a human centric species. And to that, we have to talk to each other and we have to agree that there are things that are better for us as human beings. Is this too esoteric?
Probably for so many. Again, I think the great trick is folks are so busy trying to survive, holding on by the whites of their or white knuckling or holding on by their fingernails that they don't have time to disengage and say, hey, you know what? I'm gonna go over here. I know I'm not surviving, but this is the way I'm gonna actually be able to get the rope around my waist and get pulled out by the community. You know what I
Yep.
mean?
But we have to learn how to do it. And that's the thing. I go to the library every Saturday and I sit there from 12:30 to 2 and frequently nobody shows up. Even though they say they're going to, because I love Facebook because it's so honest. People say, I'm going to be there, and then nobody shows. People, 30 people, 40 people say that they're interested, nobody shows. And I look at it and go, well, Facebook's useless. And the thing is, saying it to my face isn't any better
Mhm.
because we don't have any social contracts. Ask any of your drivers how many times a day you see they see social contracts being violated on the road because somebody is in a hurry and rationalizes to themselves that being risky and doing things that are really dangerous is okay because they have to get somewhere on time. And then I laugh when I get up to them, 30 seconds later at the same stoplight. They got exactly nowhere for all the risky behavior.
That took a huge shift in my thinking. And, maybe it's just as I age, we mature a little bit, some of us. But I am so patient now, right? Whether it's a grocery store or driving on the road, and now, quite frankly, it's dangerous,
Hmm.
right? The road, especially in California, the
Shoot.
random, people are pulling out guns and shooting people on the freeway, and you cut me off. It could have very well been an accident. I truly didn't see you, and you're shooting at me for an honest accident, right? Or I mean, an honest,
Yeah.
I cut you off. Yeah, there
Mistake.
was
Yeah.
no accident. You were able to stop or change lanes or do whatever, but you're so pissed off that you're ready to shoot at me
Hmm.
and basically forfeit your life, right? Because if you get caught, you're going to prison. But you're that angry that in that moment you have no control of your faculties.
Hmm.
That's
Yeah,
terrifying.
we yeah, but it's exactly what we've been talking about this entire hour so far.
And Mark, it's a federal offense to have issues on a plane, right? When it's in flight.
Yep.
But look at all the instances we have of people losing it on planes, and these aren't. There are some men, but a lot of these folks are women. It's like,
Yep.
what is going on? These
Well,
folks are.
I don't know if you know this, but I don't fly on the West Coast of the United States. If I'm going to go to California, I take the train.
Oh,
The
really?
reason the reason I take the train is because it's far more humane. It's a little more expensive. I get a sidecar on the sleeper cars, and it's like two people can sleep in there. I only recommend one. Um, but I take the train because I can go upstairs. I can work in the club car. The scenery is beautiful. The guy brings me wine or coffee or whatever I want the entire time while I'm there. They feed me. Um, and by the time I get there, okay, it took me 17 hours or 20 hours instead of like 2 hours. But I walk off the train, I've had a shower, I've changed my clothes, I'm relaxed, I've slept and napped a little bit, I've done some work. And when I get there, I'm in a much better place than when I get on a plane and have to deal with the BS at the airport and TSA and taking my shoes off and dumping my stuff in a bucket and having to go through and then watching people get privileged line and get on the plane first, and then having to be. You and I are both big guys. I don't like getting in an airplane with three people across that I can't literally comfortably fly for even an hour. And I have been forced on a 737 to Ohio, and then from a 737 from Ohio to DC, where I was like a pretzel in the seat trying to get there. This is 7 hours of flying.
Right.
So when they say, "Well, this plane's delayed, and we'll put you on a prop plane to New York," would that be fine with you? I says, "Yes, thank you, thank you, thank you." Because there's single seats on either side and plenty of leg room.
Yeah, I typically try to fly first class if I need to go somewhere, or business class
Yep.
if I need to go.
If you
Or
need to go something, but yeah,
and
for
there's
me,
times where I'll purchase two seats just so I
yeah,
have the space.
but most people can't do that if they need to fly.
Right, right. Well, and that's the same thing with the train. Some
Yep.
people, and I think that goes to the crux of what I'm saying is the issue, right? It's like I don't have 17 hours to take the train one way, then do what I have to do, and then 17 hours back because the way society is framed, I don't have time off.
I make
I'm not
time.
earning money.
Yeah,
I'm stuck. So,
I make time on the train. It's when I actually do my planning and thinking in a lot of my writing. If I take the train, I get a lot of writing done. So for me, the train is productive time.
no, no, and I hear you. But if I'm a single parent and I don't have
Yep.
someone to watch the kids, and I got to get
Yep.
back because I only got a day, so I got to jet down and jet back. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
It's this the Matrix is designed
Yeah.
to keep us on the hamster wheel where we can't jump off of the damn thing.
Right. And so if I have to get down there today and back, I said, "Oh, so we're going to do Zoom, right?
Mm.
No reason for me to hop on a plane if I don't have to." So yeah, it's a matter of mindset, and if we're going to get the hamster wheel to slow down and become more human, we have to do it together.
Hey, I just got to bring up, you were talking about the train, but at the same time, 818 derailments in 2022. I'm not thinking there was that
So
many.
so in the search, put one more. Put Amtrak. How many Amtrak trains would get derailed and where?
Yeah, I know that most of these are like cargo, right?
Yep,
Amtrak derailment.
there are probably a few.
Railroads.gov. I think that is probably a reputable source. It's efforting there.
Okay.
It's actually kind of a scary thought.
But yeah, I will recommend to you if you ever get into New York to take the Hudson River line up to like Rhinebeck or up to northern New York. It is absolutely gorgeous. So, are we waiting for it?
Yeah, it's just spinning.
Okay. Ah, there we go.
Oh, they just faced another one. Let's see. 2022, Missouri, multiple people killed. This was back in
2021.
June.
Yeah. Accident
Yep.
reports. There you go.
Yeah, this is where I wanted to go, and this is the one that was spinning up.
Ah, okay.
Now it pops up there. Whoops. Hold on. Sometimes these windows populate in another tab, so then I've got to close it down and then pull it back up.
Ah, okay.
So there we go.
Okay, a little bit farther down, I saw 203. Oh, 2.03. Train accidents by railroad groups. Okay. Those are related links. Okay. All right. Anyway, well, this we could go down this rabbit hole, but we're running out of time. So,
Yeah. Oh, and you got to sign in. Whoops, I don't want to put my credit card information on there. All right, we're just gonna go ahead and close that out.
oh yeah, broadcast it to everybody. No. All right. So the point is that there's dangers anywhere, and air travel is less accident prone, I think.
Right.
Um, but that's a lot of the infrastructure. I like taking the train. I wish we had a high speed rail option to California.
Why
If
don't we?
because no one has the power, no one has the will to make it happen. Again, you want will, you want things to change. We have to come together to change it. You want to change Kitsap County? Get 1,000 people together to agree that change needs to happen. It'll happen.
I may just try that.
That's what we're doing. That's what the Kitsap Resiliency Project is. So get people to the library and we'll talk to them about how to make that change.
You know, one of the things too that you brought up because you were telling the stories about the commissioners. If you have not looked at the Kitsap Sun, Commissioner Gelding or Gelder
Elder.
has stepped down and has taken another position, and so the other two commissioners, Garrido
Elder.
and Katie, what's Katie's last
Waters.
name?
Walters.
Waters.
Walters.
They have to appoint someone, or then it gets kicked up to the governor. So we'll see what comes of that.
Good gracious me, oh my. Okay.
I should run for commissioner.
You should. hmm I'm just saying that, I'm going to keep my mouth shut. Just never mind. I'm not going to say anything at this point. Um, we need to come together. We need to.
You are really biting your tongue. You want to wipe the blood off the side of your lip there? Good job there, Mark. You really reined it in there.
Yeah,
It was very difficult.
hard when I have a solid opinion about something. I really try hard, and I think Marwan will back me up on this. I know Terry would. I try really hard not to judge people, but some people just judge themselves for you, and you just have to grin and bear it.
Yes, I agree. But I give you an applause, sir. You did very well just then.
Yeah. Oh,
And
hold
if
on.
you know Mark, you'd be giving him a standing O. You deserve that, sir.
Yeah, I didn't want to blister any paint. So anyway, we need, and this is just one more step that we need. Rob Gelder was the center pillar of the government in Kitsap County. Now, my personal opinion of him, in a very clear way, is that he did a very good job, but was limited by vision. Um, and so, having him step down for another position brings two questions to mind for me. And I will say up front, I have no idea which one of these, or if these questions are even relevant. But the first question that comes to mind when I know somebody is fiscally conservative and worried about the county to be able to support itself, is the feeling I got when I talked to him, and he steps down, I wonder if there's a no shit moment coming.
I don't think so. Let me just pull this up here. There's an
As I
ad
said, I don't
break.
know. I don't know if they're relevant, but I'm just saying that there's that question that sits in my head.
Well, he's becoming the assistant county manager for Thurston County. So that sounds like an upgrade. So I think it's an opportunity that he couldn't pass up. You know what I mean?
And he's got the mindset for that job. He really does. He was the manager here to a great degree.
And so it just shows it right here.
So let
I
me be
haven't.
really clear. Let me be really clear. I'm going to miss Rob Gelder because I think he's a good man, and I think he took heart in doing the job the best way he could.
And he was one of my first interviews when I first started the conduit.
Yep.
And one of the things that he shared was, hey, he was new in town and just decided to run for commissioner.
Hmm.
And what I thought that was ballsy for sure. But what I liked about that is that really embodies the spirit that you talk about. We the people, right? Why not me? I live here. I like this community. I would like to be a commissioner. I think I can add value, right? And a lot of people that are here that feel like things aren't running the way that they should run, don't even see themselves in the position of being able to make change. And so I like his audacity, his
Yep.
unmitigated gall,
Oh,
to say, you know what, I want to be commissioner. I
and
know
we're
I'm new.
running as we're running out of time. I've got a question here for you.
Sure.
What would it look like if you had commissioners who did a good job, but also worked really hard on providing transparency, real transparency, not come to the board meetings, not come to the commissioners meetings, but real transparency, worked hard to let people know what's going on in the county.
We, I think it would be transformative, and we would be able to actually solve some of the major issues that plague other counties and cities across the country.
Yep. And the only way I argue that the only way that's going to happen is if people come together, find commonality, and work towards solutions. Now, when I say this, and I want to be very, very clear here, I'm not saying come work with me for my solutions. What I'm saying is you have a piece of the puzzle, and I don't know what that is. And when you bring it, then it becomes our solutions and our priorities. And the more people we have on the table, the bigger the picture is, the more priorities and the more solutions. And the people can target certain things working together. It's not the gospel of Mark. It's not the gospel of the Kitsap Resiliency Project. There are 5 projects in the Kitsap Resiliency Project that are human centric and involve all of us. And they're there because they will change the face of Kitsap County in a positive way for everyone. But there are thousands of other projects that need to come to the table that you bring. So, excuse my language, but get off your butts and show up.
That sounds like a final word to me.
Yep.
I can't think of
Not
anything else on that.
Yeah, not as positive as my normal ones, but
I think that is positive. Something has to stir people to action. You know what I mean?
yep.
And
And I think
whatever that is, when you talk about puzzle pieces, we're trying to figure out what your puzzle piece is that is going to spur you to action.
And you may or may not know what your puzzle piece is, but if you show up and you start doing the work, you'll figure it out.
That is true. That is true. I definitely believe that. Well, this was a fiery hour.
Yeah, I kind of thought so. So next, is it going to be coffee or bourbon?
Well, I got another show at 3, so it's gonna be Red Bull. You know,
Ah,
uh, I have done my heart some really bad damage today with my quad shot macchiato, and I'm down to half a Red Bull. Uh, Wednesdays are super busy, but it's really been busy for me. But I'm feeling great right now. The crash will be epic later. Uh, but I'm feeling good. I'm definitely motivated. I wake up every day bringing my puzzle piece and trying to do better with bringing other people to bring their puzzle piece into different spaces, right? Trying to be more intentional about that. Before we got online, I told Mark about an event and it's like, hey, can you appear with me, this Monday? And those are the things that we need to do also. It's like, hey, why don't you come and lend your voice to this? I know you've got you are a puzzle piece in this regard. Come over here. Take people to other spaces, introduce them to other people. It really
yep,
does make a difference, and you'll see those commonalities. And probably you didn't know them. And like you said, should you be afraid of the big black man? Once you have the conversation, you're like, oh man, we sure got a lot in common.
yep.
You'll probably just figure that out.
It's the way to overcome the stuff that we get pumped at us 24/7.
There you go. All right. Well, that was a great show. We're going to step off now. We'll be back in an hour with our conversation with housing, Bremerton Housing Authority and KCR. We have City Council tonight, and we have the Central Kitsap Board meeting. I got to figure out how to cover both of those because I need to be in two places at once. We'll figure it out. But again, tune in, take a break, get a snack, talk to some folks, engage, challenge yourself. For Mark Boatwright Frost, I'm R1 Cameron. This is Tipping Points and Puzzle Pieces on the Conduit Network. We'll see you next time.